Aloha and welcome to Connection to the Cosmos with your host, me, Dr. Lisa Thompson, where I have out of this world conversations with extraordinary people. And today I have Melissa Binkley on. Before I bring her on and introduce her, just a couple of announcements. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe. If you're listening on any of the podcast outlets, thank you. We'd love your likes and comments. And my newest book, Connection to the Cosmos, was launched last week, and thanks to those of you who participated, made it to #1 Amazon International bestseller. So yay for that, and you can get that on Amazon in print or the Kindle version. And then I have a new upcoming class, Connection to the Cosmos, Introduction to Extraterrestrials and Extra-Dimensionals, that's going to be coming up on Tuesday, September 27th, 5 p.m. Pacific time. It will be an online class. So if you can't make it live to the Zoom class, then it will be recorded and you can watch the replay. And you can sign up for that class on my website, mysticmanta.com, and then click on shop. Okay, so now let's bring on Melissa. Hello, Melissa.
Hello.
Okay, so let me tell everyone about you, because you're one of the most fascinating people I've ever met. Melissa Binkley is the founder of the Intuitive Intelligence Academy. She is a quantum healer and spiritual psychologist, certified mastery transformational coach, soul and business strategist, and #1 international best-selling author. Melissa uses several techniques to fuse science and spirituality, personal development, and the quantum field. Her trainings include neuroscience, quantum physics, cognitive behavioral therapy, NLP, transpersonal psychology, consciousness, heart science, health coaching, transformational coaching method, and spiritual and energy healing techniques. You know, just a few things.
Wow, I forgot about all that.
Melissa is conducting the world's largest miracles experiment in her docu-series, Quantum Miracles Mastery, How to Create Miracles Today So You Can Heal Anything. And it's reached over 1 million people. Melissa is a highly dynamic, sought-after speaker and thought leader who has shared platforms with Marianne Williamson, Dr. John Demartini, Neale Donald Walsch, and Jack Canfield, and is also a teacher for the Institute for Integrative Nutrition and on the board of several human trafficking organizations worldwide. She's been featured in Inc. magazine, Authority Mag, and BuzzFeed, as well as on TV, radio, and podcasts worldwide. Wow.
I want to like myself again. I'm like, wow, I should go back and read my bio every once in a while.
Right, I know. Like, what haven't you done? Well, so thank you so much. And just for the audience, we first met back, you approached me after CYL Soul Fest and invited me to be on Quantum Miracles Mastery. And so that's where our relationship started. And so I really, I was a newbie back then. And so you really helped launch me. And I just thank you so much. I was on your series 3 times, 3 different topics, completely different topics. And so I just
having you back. I love it.
Well, now I have a new topic, right? And so
Yes.
I really appreciate you putting your faith and trust in me. And I'm just happy to have you here on the show today.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy to be here. And I'm excited to have this conversation. I always enjoy talking with you every time we get to do this. Your energy is so wonderful and you're doing some amazing things in the world. So in the extraterrestrial, we're all the worlds.
Yes. Well, so the first thing that I like to do on the show is give people some background as to who you are, like how you grew up. Were you in a religious or spiritual household? And like ultimately, how'd you get on the spiritual path?
Oh, that's, nobody's ever asked me the question that in that way, like the religious or spiritual household. So my father was a minister.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And my father passed away this year. So I actually feel really open to being able to talk more freely about that now, because now, my father was a minister who was also a very abusive sociopath. And so I went to a Christian school up into the 4th grade. I was, definitely in religion. I read the Bible all the way through in the third grade. I won a bunch of awards for it. So I read it from end to end in the third grade. I was like that person. But by the time I got to be like 8 or 9 years old, like after I read that, I started asking questions. I was that person that was like, and of course I was super smart. So I started asking questions, and I got moved. My mom left my father when I was 8, and when she was leaving, she was trying to take us kids with her. We were 8, 3, and 1, and he said, "If you leave and take the girls, I'll kill all of you." And he would have. So she left us, and we ended up with my grandparents in Ohio. And that's when my journey of like, well, if God exists and if this, whatever, blah, 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 like all these different things that started happening in my world. I was, they made me get baptized then, like when I was like 12. And, so I was definitely, in the space of like, it was a Baptist, United Methodist, kind of church and everything and stuff. But when I was brutally raped at the age of 17, I can remember saying, F you and your God, because if God existed, then why would these things be happening to me? I'll precursor that with now I know why, right? Like, and we'll go to that later. But, at that age, you're just like, all these things happen. And if God's here to love me and protect me, then why would these things be happening to me? And I remember sitting in court, and the judge was my Sunday school teacher. And I'm sitting there and looking at the man that had raped me, and found out that it was his third offense. And if we had been in any other state around us, surrounding the tri-state besides Ohio, he would have gone to prison for life. But because it was Ohio, and I didn't testify, he ended up getting like 3 years instead. And instead, he actually started stalking me and my sisters when he got out. I was unprotected, thing, and had went to Ohio State. Actually all this. So all these things happened. And so that was, my experience of my growing up was littered with religion that I completely, buffered against, and was like, I don't want anything to do with this. And it actually took me almost into my late 30s before even the word God, even though at that point I was very spiritual and, believed in source, all these things, that the word God, it didn't trigger me. It was very triggering for me. For most of my life. And even to this day, it's not triggering anymore, but I don't use that word because I've taught all over the world to every religion that there is. And God has such a perceived notion of this man and this guy kind of thing, or whatever, that I don't go towards those types of words. I usually use source or universe or things like that was, in my spirituality now. But I was definitely anti-religion, because of my experience growing up. Now I'm not anti-religion anymore. I do believe that I believe everybody needs a faith. I think they need something to follow. And I think for some people that religion is the thing that works for them. And I'm great for them. And I also believe that if you look at the core root of what every religion in the world is trying to say, that they're all saying the same thing. And so I've just decided to go below the layer of the faith of like, this is the religion that I'm in, to the core root of it, and live in that space for myself. So
beautiful. Very similar. I wasn't brutally raped, but I did like the same, like in terms of the G word, the God word. I don't.
Yeah.
I understand it's all the same thing. And I came to that conclusion as a teenager that all the religions were saying the same thing at their base. Yeah. Well, so you had quite a journey, though, coming to the place where you are now, because, I don't know your full like drug trafficking story and like all of that. But if you could just give a little like Cliff Notes version.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So, when I go to college, I graduated high school, top of my class, super smart. Like, and for me, it was like, not only was I super smart, but there was no hell way I was going to be at home. So I was going to be at school all the time. So I was in every sport that there was. I was in everything that there was. I was, the student that they sent to all the things because I was, so smart and everything and stuff. So I go to college, and I graduate, with honors and all this kind of stuff and everything. I get a regular, job straight out of college as a technical analyst for a computer systems company. We're like a tiger team. And so I'm out straight out of college making good money, especially for when I graduated in 2000, and which was, of course, right before 9/11. And 9/11 hits, and we were a tiger team who worked for like the Ohio Department of Health and the Ohio Department of Transportation. And, I did what any traumatized, young kid who at this point I had my own kid. I'd been married and divorced, all of these things. By this time, 9/11 hits, I lose my job. And I literally became a drug trafficker. I became a party kid. I went to Florida. I met somebody that had the thing that I wanted, and they lived in California, and they're like, "Oh, you can come out here and pick it up." And I was like, "Damn straight, I will." And that's where it started. It started with ecstasy, and then ketamine and cocaine and all these things. And we ended up literally like all over, the world, trafficking drugs and things like that. And it was a short few years of my experience that nearly killed me or put me in prison. A lot of people did go to prison. I was one of the lucky ones that my journey didn't need, of my lessons in life didn't need me to go to prison to learn what I needed to learn. So I ended up not going to prison, and I, changed my life, turned my life around, and started into like doing the regular thing and having a regular job, right? And doing that, I did that for 5 years. And then in 2009, I ended up homeless. I lost the job that I had. My girlfriend left me, and, all these things happened. And I ended up homeless and living in my car, on the streets of Miami, staying with friends here and there and stuff. Looking back now, like what I do know to be true is, unlike many homeless people that are out in the world, because I have now conversations, I had people. I could have called a sister. I could have called a friend or something like that. But my pride was too big, and was too much for me to do that. And, I wasn't making enough money to, live in a place. But I had resources that I didn't believe, because I didn't love myself at that point. I just didn't love myself enough to know that I had those types of resources. But it was that coming to Jesus moment when I lost everything, that dark night of the soul, when I said, okay, I left drug trafficking. I left all the things that whatever. I left my kid. I left everything and walked away and moved so that I could get my life straight and got a regular job. And somehow, after getting a regular job and doing this for now almost 5 years, I've lost everything and I'm homeless. What am I doing wrong? Like, I don't understand. I'm following society's rules that tell me, go get a job and, make them, the money and whatever. And that's how you're supposed to live your life for the rest of your life. I'd gone to college. I was, I'm smart. I'm all these things. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. That losing that job and being homeless, because it allowed me to step into the work that I do now. While I was homeless, I found the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and decided to sign up as a student for them. I decided I was going to pay $500 a month to them instead of put it towards trying to find rent. And then ended up moving in with who was then turned out to be not my ex-wife. And in that time frame, I call IIN, who is now, I have now taught for them, Institute for Integrative Nutrition. I called them my gateway drug. They opened me up to the world of, not just because I was already in fitness and a fitness competitor and doing all this stuff, but they opened me to the world of like things that I had read before that I'd forgotten, like Celestine Prophecy and Deepak Chopra, and these things that I had, I had dabbled in them in my drug years. And, I was always philosophical, and everybody, even now, my friends that have known me now for 20 some years that knew me back then and now said, Melissa, you've always been this way. Right. But it opened me into that world and stepped me into like trying to heal my own shit and my trauma and all of the things that I didn't realize were what was holding me back, and dove me into my world of, wellness and spirituality and quantum. And I started there, and then I just went nuts. I went to MIT and took quantum physics classes. I started taking, like all these, like I started go get what's the next degree? What's the next third? Where can I travel to learn more? How can I heal myself? And I, getting downloads and things like that. And started working with clients. And that's kind of how it just went from there to, all the way.
Yeah, I mean, from 2009 to now, you have done a lot.
A lot. Yeah. I've lived a few lives.
Yeah, I say that about myself too. 4 careers, 3 marriages, yeah, lots of travel. Well, so, okay. So all of that, you've gotten your life turned around. You've probably found your love again of yourself.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But
That was the first step. Definitely. Yeah. Because I was like, not only did I have the trauma, but my body was not my own when I was younger. So it was never something where, because I mean, what happened to me at 17, that wasn't the first time that I'd had sexual trauma. It wasn't the first, there was a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff I just kind of skipped over. But, so there was a lot of things where, like, I couldn't handle somebody telling me that I was beautiful or pretty for the longest time because I was like, well, what do you want? What do you want from me? Right. So to even be able to say thank you when somebody says that without me cringing or without being like, and without having to compliment you back and say all these other things or whatever, that we always do as women, especially too, all of those things that I had to grow into that, but it definitely was the core of one was self-love. And then two, really just going back and reprogramming my brain and rewriting all of the things in my system that were causing the dis-ease in my life. Cause I ended up physically ill, all sorts of physical illnesses, stuff. I was bipolar, diagnosed bipolar in my 20s, anxiety on Valium on, you name it. I had every freaking thing that you could imagine. Like I healed myself from, and I was always doing that and learning these things. I was like working with clients and, started doing that experience to move into the place that I'm at today at 45.
yeah. Well, so the work that you did on yourself, is that what inspired the Quantum Miracles Mastery docu-series?
Yeah, the work that I did on myself is what inspired me to start when I was working with clients. And so I was working on myself at the beginning while I was working with clients, but then I had clients that were having these transformational healings. Like they would be coming to me for like food, whatever, but they'd have a thyroid problem. And all of a sudden, 3 months later, their thyroid is completely healed. And their doctor would be like, what the hell did you do? Or these things and stuff like that. And that was when I was like, I kind of came into the science backwards on it. Cause I'm like, what are we doing that's allowing this to happen? And I went and started studying. And that was when I got fascinated with, the quantum mechanics and that whole world and the whole, all of those things. And so as I started seeing these miracles happen for myself and for clients and things like that, and following all of these people that I loved and then getting to be on stages with them, I was like, we're at a precipice in the world where allopathic medicine and all of these things and mental health and all this stuff, like they've been given all these tools in this way, but it is so old school. It's like, it is so linear. And this is like, you take a pill, you do this, you do that, you work, stress and anxiety, all these things. And there's no other options, but we're living in a world where everybody is waiting and ready for something different. And I was like, I want to bring those people together and show that you can create miracles, and miracles actually is something that happens today and you can create them, and that there's an experience and that there's actually a scientific formula behind it. And there's these different ways that you can do this that exist. And I had these connections from being on stage before COVID and, things like that allowed me to call on some of these people and be like, let's have this conversation. Let's really do this. And that was, that was kind of the start of that. It was just like this epiphany. I was like, I love this stuff and I want to share it with the world. And that's why I think the time frame of when it was everybody's like ready, open, looking for something different. We're in that shift from 3D to 5D. People are saying, I need something else. How many people on a, daily basis that I used to talk to and come onto our stuff, they're like, I've tried everything. People used to come into my conferences, been like, I've done it all. The Tony Robbins, I've tried the doctors, everything. I was like, oh, if you've tried everything, come see me. That was literally our tagline for a while. Cause literally we had so many people say, I've tried everything so often. And then they'd come and try one of our things or our programs and be like, oh, finally I get it. And it was just cause we were offering it in a different way that you could really step into. Cause I think we're all trying to say something similar somehow along the way.
Right. Well, and you're right. People need this kind of information now because allopathic medicine, it's good for some things. Like if you have a broken bone, go and get it set. If you need a surgery, yes, okay. But, there are most things we can't heal.
Well, and even in mental health, right? Like they just now, have you seen the reports that the pills that they've been giving you all of these years that are supposed to help with your serotonin because they believe that that's how the brain worked for the depression pills. But you take a depression pill and it actually creates you suicidal, or like my girlfriend, she's been on antidepressants for 4 years, and she's like, I'm just numb. She's like, I don't like, it doesn't make me, it's not me. And or how many friends that I've had that have been on antidepressants that are still depressed, and then they find out, oh wow, it really doesn't work. Like EFT, they've now proven they're using it in the military and things like that. Is they've already proven, but it's woo woo or what? No, it's not, right? It's more effective than what your doctor's been putting you on these answers. And now it's coming out now scientifically. They're proving it with these reports that are coming out. And you're like, you didn't know that?
Right. Okay. So you have done a lot, but you've had a lot of change in your life, throughout your life. And before we came on, you were sharing how in the last 8 or 9 months, there's been huge transformation once again. And, part of this show is really like, we do have a connection to the cosmos, which we'll get to later, but we are human. We're here living a human life and going through human experiences, no matter how much we know, right? How smart we are, how awakened we are. And so I would love if you can just share a little bit about what's been going on and what, you've completely changed your entire life, like moving and the business and everything.
There's nothing in my life that is the same right now that it was a year ago. Nothing. And that is, it's even as I say it, and that was the first time that I said it was when we just right before we got onto this call. It was the first time that I actually said it, and really, and I was like, oh my God, that's actually really the truth. So last year, I fell off of a boat, injured myself, and so I'm always an athlete. I'm always like training for some sort of thing or whatever. And I had a shoulder injury. So I was running marathons because I couldn't use my shoulder. So I was doing lower body. Then I fell off of a boat, speared the back of my leg, was hanging off the boat through the back of my knee. And so then I hurt my leg. So then I couldn't use my upper body to work out or my lower body to work out. And as someone that's an athlete that does adventure sports like snowboarding and surfing and, extreme hiking and stuff like that, as it's fun for me, being completely physically injured, I was kind of like, I got started in that kind of like, what's going on? But, my meditation and my teaching, my classes and stuff kept me up for a little while. But while I had that happen, I decided to have surgery because I was like, well, I can't do anything anyway. So I might as well go ahead and get the surgery done so that I can do all the things at once because I'm already down and out. And not knowing, honestly, I don't know that this has ever been a conversation, but I've had the conversation with my other friend who just had major surgery. I went through a deep depression after my surgery. So I had the surgery. 2 weeks later, my mother-in-law dies on Mother's Day. And now former mother-in-law, as in the, mother of my ex-husband, but it's the grandmother of my child who's now 24 years old. So it's family for 28 years. Like, no, it doesn't matter. Guys, on a Christmas Day, I'm right out of surgery, and I have to get on a plane and go to Ohio. And at that point, I had already been neglecting my business and letting my team run it, and was like having issues. Like I was teaching, I had courses running and stuff, so we're teaching the courses, and some of them are online. But I'm at a point where the webinars, because we're having to do so many webinars every, and I'm doing transmission stuff. Like I started filtering off. I have a huge list. I have all these things going on, and I just kind of started backing out because with the injury, the surgery, and that I just couldn't give anything, and I just didn't feel connected to the community, and I was having these things going on. So I started seeing issues in that. So I fly home to Ohio. I'm there in Ohio, which is my hometown, where that was where I did the drug stuff. That's where I was with my friends for 20 some years. My friends that saw me, that have known me all these years, said, they didn't tell me at the time, but they now tell me, they said, Melissa, in 20 some years that I've known you, I've never seen you the way that you were when you came home for Christmas, after Christmas, and you were home for New Year's. And I didn't even realize it within my own self at that point. I knew energetically something was off. I knew these things were happening, but I didn't kind of recognize it. Came back from there, and was trying to get things going back on, right? Like hired a new marketing team. I ended up taking out a bunch of loans to pay my team and do some stuff because, you know, everything started moving up and down in the business and all these different types of things. Because before COVID, I used to go travel all over the world. I've been to 47 countries. I would speak in, you know, here, I do retreats here. I would do all this stuff and everything. And so COVID had thrown us all online. And then it had changed the way that we marketed. Then we had to put things online. Then I had started a Vimeo and I started a YouTube, right? Everything started being through this little box, right? I'm a connector. You know, I love human interaction and things. And so I started having human interaction with, you know, communities here and things like that, but it wasn't related to the work or the things or anything like that. So January came and still I don't want to get on. I don't want to teach a class. I don't want to do any of this stuff. And then my father dies in February and it was horrific. I didn't sleep for a week. I had to fly back to Ohio. My father was a hoarder, turns out. But I'm talking about when I say a hoarder, you all watch that hoarder show. There's not a single episode on the hoarder that can compare to what was going on in my father's home. He had not had running water in over 5 years. There were bags of feces in the house. You couldn't even the accumulation of decay and trash was worse than a trash you know, thing that you would go to. It was devastating for me to see and have to deal with and to go to and to know that he had been living in this experience for so long. And my father was a sociopath who had done some really horrible things to us and had some, you know, had a lot of bad things that had happened. But in the end, he was still my father, and I had forgiven him, right? I with my own healing work. And at one point when I talked about some stuff in a book, he got super mad, and then he came back and he had apologized to me. He had a riff. He ended up with a riff where I think that he was living in what he felt like on the inside. Like he literally created the outer experience. And my father used to call me like 10 times a day. And then my sister and then my other, you know, and we'd all be like, what the like stop. None of us, not me, not even knowing until after going to see. Now I would call you 10 times a day too if I was living in that. I had nothing. I didn't have running water. I talked to people that from his work. Like the experience was just beyond anything. When we had the biohazard unit come in to case the place and everything stuff, they said over 200,000 homes that they had serviced. It was in the top 2 that worst that they'd ever seen. Wow. So that rocked my world, not because my father passed. And this is to be clear. I actually, you know, was like, thank God he's not living in this. I'm glad he passed. But the experience of like what I had experienced with my relationship with my father and the compassion that it opened up for me about why he was calling me all the time and why people do the things that they do and all of that. And so I'm in this, my own depression from my surgery, from the things from my business, from things taking from my business because I refuse to do the things that need to be done. All of these things happening. And then this happens with my father. And I come back to California after being there for a couple of weeks. And during this whole year or so, in the past the year previous to that, I had I'm in an experience of I'm not poly, but I was in an experience with a in the lifestyle that I choose to lead in my relationships and things where I had fallen in love with a married man, and his wife was my best friend, and she knew, and he was in love, but I was in love with her too, and we spent every day together, and all of these different types of things. And I came back from this experience to that, and it blew up in a really tragic, bad way. I not only lost 2 people that I probably have loved as much as I've loved anybody in this whole life and my whole world, my whole time. Yeah. But it was one of those experiences where there were missteps taken by him, by me, by her, all of these things that happen that just it was really bad. It was really, really bad. I'm not in a place where I'm going to talk about all the things that happened at this point. At some point I will, but but it was one of those things where I was speaking to him on the phone at one point, and I had that moment flicker of where I was like, why am I on this earth? What am I doing here? I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to be here anymore. I hadn't had a suicidal thought for 20 years. More, right? I had tried to commit suicide when I was a teenager. In my, or after I was raped, like all that, right? Like I'd been there before, and it was fleeting. It didn't last. It didn't stick with me, but it was that thought. I said, I got to go. I hung up the phone and called one of my best friends and said, I'm on my way over right now. And that was from like March to May and June, May, June, this stuff is all going on. I'm having these experiences. And the whole time, the business, I'm going from being a international business with students and clients, 10,000 all over the world, to having my student take over teaching my classes, to not sending out, not doing, like stopping ads, stopping that, right? Like, and there's only so much of a point where you're running a business where I don't care how much money you're making, if you're a millionaire, multimillionaire, whatever, because I've talked to all my mentors about, right? Where if you don't keep the cogs running at some point, where if I'm paying out $25,000 a month in employees and bills and things like that, where at some point I am going to, and then the loans that I took out start becoming due, that I was like, everything was like crazy. Everything was like insane, and then I was like, but I just kept saying, I was like, well, I have the Docu-series coming up, so it's fine. I always make, 6 figures or more after the Docu-series. And that's all I can't do anything else. I can't do anything else. I'm just going to wait for that. And so I just let it do what it was doing. Right. I just let it keep going. All I focused on was getting the Docu-series out there because that was my passion and my love. And I knew that from that, things would happen. And I was just like, whatever, because this experience in my life, it was so challenging. I cried every day for 5 weeks straight. Every day for 5 weeks straight. I reached out to every healer, every mentor that I've worked with before. Every single one of them, right? Like I did it all. I don't know where I went. I think my thing just came undone. So because at that point, like what it brought me back to, and I guess the gift in this is that it made me remember the people that we work with, like how, what it felt like to be that, because I forgot what it was like to be so bad that I couldn't get there myself, no matter what I did. And I had every tool in my box. I've taught thousands of people. I've done all the work. I have healed all my shit. Like I have done everything, and I have been I've done it all. And I was at a place where it did not matter. I could not pull myself out at all, no matter what I did. And so it was a really powerful lesson for me to understand and learn that, how sometimes these things can happen, so after the Docu-series, so after that, like I ended up, I lost family, I lost friends, I lost all of these things in my life. And are we coming back yet? Yes, no. Okay. I'm like, don't touch anything. Right.
Technology, right?
Oh my goodness.
We're in Mercury retrograde
still. Yeah.
All good.
We did the Docu-series, of course, and it was super successful, and all these things that were gearing up and, getting ready to fill more, which we were doing in the academy, filling more programs and doing all of that, that type of thing. And I'm still feeling like, I'm like, there's something's off. Something's not right. Right. Like something is not right. And right around, it was the other piece in May, my landlord comes to me, my beautiful home in California that I lived in for 5 years. And it's like, you have 2 months, 60 days. And so at that point, family members, the business, the injury, the depression, the loss of this love, and and these things are going on in that time. And I knew it was going to end. Like it was May. It was right when he told me that. I already had a feeling like the thing with the the relationship didn't officially end until July. But, so when that happened, I said, fuck it. I'm leaving the country. I'm moving overseas. I'm moving back to Bali. I have a retreat in Bali in September. I have to go for it anyways. I had bought property in Lombok, Indonesia before COVID that we were trying to close on. The build a retreat there never happened, et cetera. But like it's home for me. And I was like, I'm just going to go over there. I was running away. I didn't want to be in this state, in this experience, in this energy anymore, right? So I was running away. So I said, okay, I'm going to move. So I announced I'm moving. Didn't tell people why. I just said, I'm moving out of the country. I'm going. So early July comes around, and and I do a special thing for my birthday. And I decided I'm going to just do some readings for people on my list for my birthday, because I haven't taught any classes. I haven't done any webinars. I haven't done any stuff now for going on months and months, except for here and there very little, because I can't. And I'm barely teaching the classes that I have that are running. I have my students doing that because I'm not, there. And that whole time I'm working on, healing myself, doing the work and everything, that kind of stuff. And I connected with those clients and did these, this small stuff. And it was amazing. It was mind blowing. I loved it. It was so awesome. And that was it. I was like, you know what? That's it. The energy is telling me it's time to move on. It's time to move on from this international business. The academy I started in 2016. We built all these courses. There's, we teach quantum healing, all this crazy stuff, but they're all courses and they're all that, right? And they're all still there. They exist, that whatever. But I decided and made a decision to shut down the Intuitive Intelligence Academy, which is actually the underlying corporation underneath that is Melissa Binkley International. And, that was my decision. I let go of everybody that was working for me. I did that. We're, shutting down all the stuff. I've gone through a lot to do all of those things. And people are like, well, why didn't you just shift the business? And what? Because energetically, that business that I built and started in 2010, in this, that I have that name for and those things, that I then put the academy on top of and things like that, energetically is different than who I am now. I have to let go of all of it energetically and completely start over. Now, the person that I am and what I'm building next and what I'm creating is still me. All of the things that I did before and that I built that whole thing are obviously going to come through in this next step. But I had to do the rift. I had to complete the change. I had to do that. So I decided, I sent out an email to my list to let everybody know. I said, keep watching for me. Pay attention, because there's going to be something new coming up. I just left and went to Europe for 5 weeks. I went to Greece, Morocco, Europe and Africa, Greece, Morocco, and Spain. And spent 5.5, almost 6 weeks over there with my best friend of 22 years. I'm talking my best friend, Nick, platonic best friend, who knew me back in the day. He was actually one of my drug runners 20-some years ago, who had guns to his head for me, who's now a successful businessman, who I'm a successful businesswoman. 22 years later, he was the best man in a wedding, and we decided to go on this trip. And I did this 5 weeks of just being loved, but like I've never been loved before in my life. And the type of love that I needed, that wasn't sexual, wasn't anything, just this experience, right? And reset my system, and work on starting to really understand. And as I was traveling and doing that, I was like, what is next? What am I going to be doing? What am I opening up? Where am I going with it? As I was traveling to these different places and stuff, I realized, I've been to 47 countries. I've done these things all over the world. And one of my favorite things that I do, besides the retreats, was taking people on these experiences and putting them in the vortex. And when you go somewhere and you have somebody there for 5 days, 7 days a week, and you go to a sacred space, or you go to things, it completely changes your whole experience, and nothing is ever the same again.
Yes.
And so that was what I decided. I was like, so I'm going to be going back to doing that. We're going to be doing soul ventures for people, and we're not, and the things like that. I'm going to be doing some private work, with stuff, because I, just to keep myself in connection and things like that as we roll out I don't have a we anymore. I keep forgetting that it's not a we. I don't have a we anymore. It's so weird to go from having a whole team. I mean, I'm, a whole team and all of these things to it's just me again.
Yeah.
It's just me. I'm back down to this, and I was one of those. I'm like, I have a world vision of helping, I say there's 8 billion people in the world. I only want 1 billion of them. And my vision has not changed. I want to reach, we have my work has reached millions. And with the documentary that they're doing about my work, it's going to reach millions more. But right now, I had to go back to this and be like, okay, what am I doing? and recreate. So it's me and my business, are stepping into a new realm, and we'll see where that takes me. But it's different.
Yeah. And beautiful, because I mean, I didn't have quite as big of a team when I had my design company, but I did have to go through a very similar process of like, okay, this isn't who I am anymore energetically. And moving to Hawaii, for me was like the ultimate ability to release that, because I tried to do it when I was still in Washington, but I had to get out of the energy of what people knew me as so that I could actually transform into like, here's my true authentic self.
Yeah. And people know me as like, right. I am all those things that you said, right? That's what I kind of, when you were reading it, I was like, yeah, I am all those things that you said. And of course, all that will come through in my work. But there was something about the academy itself and the structure and whatever, and the courses, and all those things that I just got to a point where I was like, and the courses are amazing and they're great. And I'm sure that at some point they'll show up somewhere. We have the app that we have. They're all still on there. I'm just not, we're not offering those classes anymore, or whatever, things like that. And, that whole guise of that kind of stuff. I got to go back to this deep connection, this interpersonal work, connecting with people in that type of way. Come meet me somewhere in the world and let's do something kind of thing. There's definitely a piece of me that's gypsy, like I got it in me. Like, like everybody's always like, where are you? And I literally get texts almost every other day. Where are you in the world?
Well, and today I asked you that. I had no idea you were back in California. I thought you were going to
be back in California for a wedding for, a couple of weeks. And then I leave again at the end of the month. So,
yeah. And are you still going to Bali?
No. So funny thing happened, while I was in Europe. So I canceled the retreat that was in Bali. There just logistics and some things that were going on. We'll do it next year in March, which is the time that we normally do them every year anyways, previously. So the reason that I was going to go to Bali right away was because I had the retreat, and then I was just going to screw it. I'll just stay and move there now. Well, I love fall and winter, and I have been perpetually living in summer, here in California for a long time, and I would leave and go snowboarding in Utah and Colorado, or go visit my kid in Ohio and stuff. But I've decided to spend the fall and winter in Europe. I fell in love with Barcelona. I'm going for like a month to Portugal, a month to Switzerland, Italy to Domartini, which is a spiritual eco-society where I have spent time before. And I have my icon pass. And so I'm going to snowboard my way through the winter in Europe and go and enjoy the fall there before I go over to Indonesia. And my plan is no plan. To be clear, I'm letting the universe guide me. I could wake up 3 days from now and the universe says you're doing this, and that could be the other happening. Because I do have a new business partner here in California, who we're working on something else where we're going to be, he owns 4 or 5 boutique hotels and is building a place in Santa Barbara. And we're working on building something together where I'll be doing retreats and things at these places and building a whole experience there. So I'll be coming back, and doing things like that. It's not like I'm going to be in that space. So there's several things in the works in that realm with like business and the wellness and everything like that. But my plan honestly is no plan at this point. The only plan I have is I'm not dating for a year. I've got that on my goal, right? Like I'm like, I'll go on a date, but I'm not dating, right? Like I'm like, I meet people in the city, but that no dating for a year, take care of myself, build a new business, and who knows where in the world I might end up. I am open to all opportunities. But right now I know that I'm going to go back to Europe for a bit and enjoy that. And I know Bali is, I mean, Bali, Indonesia, Lombok, and Western Australia are all very much home for me. So that is all on the list. I'll be over there for sure.
Okay, excellent. So we're going to switch gears real quick. I love all that. So I want to make sure I get this in before we run out of time. But have you had any experiences with UFOs and aliens?
So I was 8 years old. So I was born in Dallas, Texas. And not 8, I was a little bit younger because 8 was when everything went. So I was probably like 6 or 7. No, 7. I remember the red kitchen. And I was outside and it was a UFO. I know for a fact it was a UFO, right? And of course I came and told my Christian minister parent, like, and they're like, I think, you can't, that's not the truth. Sure enough, on the news that night, they said it was a UFO.
Yeah.
I was like, I have definitely had, and that's just like, the idea of like the UFO experience and stuff. I have done regression. I've had different things. Like, I know, like, I'm not from this planet, like, plain and simple. And and I don't know, I'm pretty sure since this is your audience watching this, they're not going to think I'm crazy for saying this stuff, but a lot of, if I'm going to be sending this out to my group too. So, so y'all can think I'm crazy or not, but I'm telling you, I've never felt like I was from Earth. And then I worked with someone who said, that, and I didn't know any of this stuff or one of these things, but like that I Pleiades in series. And then you said you got all the things. I was like, I don't even know what that means, but I've had experiences where I've seen and, seen things and downloads. And then for sure, there's pieces of my childhood. Like, I had massive trauma, so I know that's part of it, but there's also pieces of my childhood where I truly don't think I was in my body. Like, I think I was out hanging out with people out there doing something else. Like, I have no question that, like, I would be like, I'm out, like, you guys can hang out there. I'm going out here to do stuff in this realm, like, for sure. So,
well, and that's something we can explore more potentially together.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
Okay, so it was in the middle of COVID. You took a trip to Egypt.
Yeah.
And so profound experience, but
profound. Yeah. I went to, so the first thing that happened that was out of this world, right? So it's during COVID. So usually 14 million of people a year go to Giza, right? And go to the pyramids. There wasn't anybody there. So we got to go up into the main great giant pyramid, right? And, the sarcophagus that's in there, right? It's like guarded. You're not allowed to be around it. They let me lie down in it. They let me lie down in it. I have video, right, of me in the energy inside the sarcophagus. They said, over the time of all the years that people are doing this, there's like a handful of people that have ever been able to like lie down in the sarcophagus in the Great Giant Pyramid. And immediately my whole body, like, I felt the energy, and it's coming and rushing through me, and it was vibration, and all of a sudden, and I'm like, what is going on? And you could just feel it. It was incredible. So that was the start of it. So then we go from Giza. Later in the trip, we end up in Luxor. And in Luxor, we went to we took a couple boat rides and did like the Temple of Isis and did all these different temples. And I'm having all of these like profound, like, just energies and things that are going on. But at this point, I hadn't had any like major visions or anything like totally shifting yet or anything, but there was a lot going on. We get to Luxor, and our retreat leader, because I was doing this retreat for me instead of hosting it. It was so great. She had gotten us private access to parts of the we were in the things that you go into where all the people were where all the hieroglyphs and everything are. Why is my brain just completely shocked?
The pyramids.
The temples. Like, so we were in the temples in Luxor. I'm like, so they have a lot of it where it's boarded off. They're locked. You can't go in them. They don't want regular public in there because they still have all the color and everything, right? Most of the hieroglyphics that you get to see that the public gets to, the color's all gone. So we're walking into these things, and you're just like, and you have light, like there's pictures like light shining down, and you're just like, and standing, and you can understanding like what's happening and why things are built the way that they are. And the people that are there to guard and watch over the temples and things like that, there's 3 of these men in these like long skirt like, outfits. And they come over to me, and so I'm in a group of all spiritual women, here are the yogis and different things like that. They come over and they tap me on the shoulder and they're like, come with me. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And so I follow them. They take me out of the room where everybody else is at, take me over into another private room, shut the door and lock it so nobody else can get in, right? You can see through, but they don't want anybody else to come in. And they start doing all these rituals on me and praying over me and doing all this stuff. And I'm standing there, and all of a sudden I just start, my body and my energy, and I start feeling everything coming up. And because I'm teaching the quantum healing, and I've been speaking to someone, and they said the work that you're teaching is very Egyptian, and I had no idea that it was. I had no clue. No clue. So that was where I actually found out, because I was having conversations with people like, this is all very Egyptian stuff that you teach. And I was like, oh. Mm-hmm. And I started feeling this energy, and I was like, what are you doing? They're like, we're initiating you. And they said, they said, and they're trying to explain to me that there was something very special. And like, and my friends are, they're out there and they're like, we want in. And they're like, no, they're standing there like, you cannot come in. This is for her. It was, they were kind of like, I was like, wow. Okay. So then we are, going through, and we get a private access to the statue of Nefertiti. And nobody gets to go in. We got to go in and actually stand in front of it, touch it, put our hands on it. So I go in there, I'm in there by myself. I got to go in one by one, and I go in and I stand in it and put my hand on it. And all of a sudden, I would say probably 15 years ago, I kept getting these visions of I didn't know it was called a scepter, these visions of this thing. And it would keep coming into my thing. And I'm like, what is this? It kept trying to hand it to me. And I'm like, I don't know what this thing is. I don't know what this thing, And then on my 40th birthday, when I was in Bali, I say that it was like I will always be before 40 and after 40, because I had a literal shift in my life where I felt the world shift around me, right? I was sitting on this rock. I felt the world shift, and I again saw this scepter, and this time they handed it to me and I had to take it. So I'm like, okay, so fast forward, I'm in Egypt, and it's the scepter. And now not only is it being, I'm handing it there, not only is it being handed to me, it's being put into my body, and the top of it is into my pineal gland right here, and the base of it is at the root of my body, and it's completely in. And all of a sudden, it starts glowing like crystalline, and I all of a sudden I know things, and I can see things, and I'm like having all these and it's like this gift of healing that I had, and it's all of a sudden in my brain. And I'm like, I know this sounds really weird, guys. Like I posted something about this on Facebook, and like my own aunt was like, yeah, whatever, you're such a crock and whatever, crack, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm telling you, all I know is that this is what happened. And after that, my healing abilities went up, and people were having even more profound healings. And I was able to do it in a different way than I'd done before. Like, whatever, it's energy is energy. This is what I see and feel. And it was incredible. So I had like this scepter put inside my body, and it just sits there, and it has changed the way that I do healing. It opens from in here, and it's like fascinating. So yeah, profound experience there with all these things. Like every time I'd go places, that people would just pull, they'd be like, you have to this and stuff and everything. And everybody'd be like, what is going on with her? And I'm like, I don't know. Oh, yeah.
That's incredible. Number one, that you guys got that private access that only like TV shows maybe get occasionally.
Yeah.
But also that's so beautiful, the healing and that energy. And what's really interesting of what you had said, how someone had said that you were, half Syrian, half Pleiadian, is the Syrians they had direct influence on the Egyptian culture. They're all about healing. Yeah, they're all about the physical healing, and it is at a quantum level, absolutely. And last week I got to experience a regression session here, and I knew that I had a Syrian life related to ancient Egypt, where I was a genetic engineer, but I got to fully experience that life and that energy, and see how that healing was done. And it's definitely like a sound frequency energy resonance
Yeah. Sound frequency energy for sure. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
so,
believe that that's how the pyramids were
yes,
built. I believe that it was my sound frequency.
what,
100%. I had,
I
they did not lift those big blocks. They did it with sound. With
yes,
sound vibrational energy.
yes,
Guaranteed. I don't know that why we lost that technology and why we don't know how to do that now. But I'm telling you that it's all about that. Yeah.
Melissa, I saw it. I
You
got
saw
to
it.
in my regression. And it was that. It was like
Yeah.
a toning mixed with thought.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how the
Yeah. I
intuition-
totally 100% believe that. Yeah.
yeah. And so I also got to see like, and this is going to be in my next book, this story, because it's just so cool. But I got to see what my role was, or how we upgraded the DNA, because we were there to help
Yeah.
activate the DNA so that the body could hold more energy. And it was,
and we're in a process of that right now, right? Like there's a DNA upgrade and thing I mean going on right now. It's
yes,
there's so much happening.
there really is. And so anyway, so just super cool that you got to have that experience, and it right around the same time now that I've just been able to really go deep into that lifetime. And
oh, that's so exciting. Like, I want to know more. Yeah.
so more. Okay, so in all your travels, what place has been the most like influential or impactful on you? Was it that Egypt trip, or is there another place where you've had that much happen?
No, so and I Nepal and Indonesia still are at the top for me, even though that was super spiritual and very impactful in the way that it was.
Yeah.
Nepal, it was a combination of the women that I got to work with, because I work with like women who've been trafficked and things like that, and being up in the mountains and hiking through the Himalayas. And there was something about the energy of Nepal that has just always sat with me, that I just can't quite, like that. There's that piece of that. And then Indonesia, I literally had my entire life shift while I was in Indonesia. And that's why I keep going back there, and why I've looked at property, and why, I've looked at retreat centers and things like that. And I mean, I literally have a tattoo on my arm that I got in Lombok, Indonesia, done in bamboo, that says Kalawarga, which means family. Like it's like my family there, so for me, when I'm connected to a place, it's not just the energy and like what, spiritually, because like I went to a ton a lot in Bali, and it was like that was where I had my experience of that shift. It's that, but it's also the community and the friends and the family that I make in a place. Also, I think it does have something to do astrologically. I had my that thing done, the cartography, or is that what it's called, or whatever, where they do your lines to find out like where through the world, and all of my lines run through that part of the world, like Western Australia, India, Nepal, Indonesia, like that whole part of the world. So when I go there, I just feel like I'm at home, and at the top of my list is still to go over is like Tibet and Bhutan, and some of those other places that I haven't explored yet. So I'm sure that the next place that's going to feel that way it's still coming.
Okay. Well, and
that was pretty powerful too, I'll tell you. Powerful when we went down through Machu Picchu and through Cusco and Peru, also in the Amazon.
I'm excited. I get to go to Peru next year on a trip, so very excited. We were supposed to go this year, but it got postponed because of COVID again. So, well, and one little tidbit just for that Pleiadian side of you that she indicated is that the Pleiadians had a heavy influence throughout the Pacific, Australia, Indonesia, Hawaii. So,
All right. Learning so much today.
Practically, that makes sense. And I've never had my astrology cartography thing done before, but it'd be super interesting.
Super fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah. So I need to find someone to do that. So if anyone out there in my audience does that, reach out to me. So, okay. So we're like, okay, what's Melissa going to be doing next? And you're open to whatever the universe has.
Yeah.
knowing that you're going to Europe at some point, you're going to be back in Bali doing the retreat.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, I'll be back over there. I'm going to be looking. I definitely know where I'm working with this one thing to do some, the retreats that we're going to be doing some permanent like stuff with those. Definitely going to be, really connecting on in the soul, in that vortex of soul energy, like the experience that I had in Egypt, and I've had them, I've had different things like that, for different places. Like I took a client to Thailand back right before, before COVID, and we spent a week there together and had, she had profound life-changing experiences and things like that. Like there's something about like we can do this and talk online, and I can teach you a class online, and we can do that. And I've been doing it for a long time. But there's something about like the transformation of like settling in and doing that, like doing this thing that's calling to me right now. And probably because I'm a travel bug and, and all those different types of things that's really, I don't know exactly what it looks like yet, but there's definitely a piece of that, because I'm also an adventurous. I've done adventure sports all over the world. And, I've also been to all temples all over the world and ashrams and all that kind of stuff. And so, and I have this magic that happens when I travel of like my friend, you can tell my friends, like, just take Melissa with you and the craziest, coolest shit's going to happen. You don't even try. And so it's kind of like when you get to walk in that experience and see what that's like, because now like my friends that just went with me on that trip for 5 weeks, they're like, how does that? And I'm like, because I'm in this like space, this thing. And so things just happen, right? So like when you get to see that in working action and have that happen for you, it puts you in a different space. And you're like, oh, this is how the world really works. It is really a quantum world. You can learn to work in the quantum. Like time doesn't exist. Reality doesn't exist. I'm never late. And I'm left late all the time because I can, like time bending and stuff happens and all these kind of crazy things. So it's really cool. So I know there's a part of me that wants to teach people how to experience that, living it, in it, be it, a part of it instead of just practicing it online and learning it, no, like embody it, like walk it with me, like see what it's like to walk in my world for a week kind of thing. Wow, I like that. See what it's like to walk in my world for a week.
Well, I love it. And so how can people connect with you if they're interested in
right now, the best way is go to Instagram to melissa.s.binkley. I also have my email, melissa@melissabinkley.com. I would say just say those best two. Because of the Docu-series, that website will stay up. So it's quantum-miracles.com. So, that's the one for our big Docu-series. So you can get on the wait list for the next one so you can find out about that. But our other websites are still up and about. But I mean, if you contact us through one of those, we might get it still. I don't know, but yeah, Instagram is super easy. I'm on Facebook. I'm on all the social medias, but Instagram is probably the best one. Follow me on there.
Okay. Well, and for those that are listening and not seeing the video, it's Melissa, and then Binkley is Binkley.
Yeah.
So make sure you.
So melissa.s.binkley.
Yes. Beautiful.
Yeah. And you can just Google my name. You'll find all sorts of interesting things.
Thank you so much for being on today. And I can't wait to see where life takes you next. And I'm so glad that, you are still here with us and that you are a living example of living that quantum world and just like going where the universe takes you and creating your reality. So such an inspiration in so many ways. And so
again, I love you so much. I'm so happy that we got to do this.
For those of you listening and watching, thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you or hear you next time. Aloha.